All of Mods 10 adds a whole bunch of new enchantments, and if you don't know what they are and what they do, it can be very confusing to figure out which ones you should add on your armor, your sword, your pickaxe, and which ones you shouldn't. That is the whole intent of this video, is to show you what enchants are best for what pieces of armor, as well as your sword and your pickaxe. I'm also going to give you some tips for how to get these enchants, what the highest levels are, and the easiest ways to put them on your armor and tools. I hope this video helps you. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Let's get into it. All right, now one of my last videos, we covered how to set up this enchanting setup right here, which is how we're going to get these enchants in the first place. I highly recommend having an apothic enchanting setup where you have the full max Eterna, Quanta, and Arcana first, because it's going to make it a lot easier to get this setup correctly. In addition to that, I've spent quite a lot of time enchanting books using this setup and then putting them all into my library of Alexandria. So this has got quite a few enchants in it with a lot of stored up enchant points. Now, the one thing that I've changed about this enchanting setup since the last video that I made is I added this shelf of aquatic filtration and added 3 enchants in there. We added Curse of Vanishing, Unusing, and Curse of Binding. Basically what that means is that my enchanting table will never give me either of those 3 enchants. You can use this for whatever enchants you don't want. All you have to do is take a book or whatever you're looking to not get anymore. So in this case, because I'm really never going to need anything like Tombstone Soulbound, you can take one of those out, and this C shelf will hold 3 books on each level. So on the bottom, you can hold 3, and at the top, it can also hold 3. And now, whenever I'm enchanting, I'll never get any of those 4: Tombstone Soulbound, Curse of Vanishing, Unusing, and Curse of Binding. Pretty cool stuff. Now, one thing I didn't mention in the last video is that the Library of Alexandria will only allow you to remove an enchant that is the same level as an enchant that you put in. So let's say you put in 15 Blessing level 12 books. You can still only pull out Blessing level 12. However, if you were to pull out 2 Blessing level 12, and since Blessing goes up to level 13, and you combine them to Blessing level 13, fly back over and put it in here, you can now pull out Blessing level 13, and you can pull out as many of those as you want. So that's how we're going to upgrade all of these books to get to the top tier that we can get to, because inherently our enchantment table is not actually going to give us the highest level enchants we can. We actually have to combine them by using this Library of Alexandria and an anvil. One other thing that's worth mentioning, in order to do all of this, you'll notice I have 500 levels of XP. That is because I have a ridiculously large mob farm going using a redstone remote. Thank you guys to everybody who commented on the last video. There is a way to actually send a wireless redstone signal. It's just different than the last one. So using a redstone remote, we're able to turn this on and off, and then it's able to store all of the levels of XP and then keep me at whatever this target level is. I just arbitrarily chose 500 because it seems like a really large number. That's cool. The other thing you can do is you can enchant your items in here if you want to. However, I would highly recommend you don't do that, because that's only going to make it more expensive to add the nicer levels of higher tiers of books to your items later on as you get the highest tier, which is what you're going to want to have in the first place. So don't actually enchant your items. All you're going to want to do is enchant a whole bunch of books, put them in here, upgrade to the highest tier or highest level for those enchants, and then we're going to put those enchants onto our items using an anvil. That's why it's so expensive. That's why you need a lot of XP. All right, so first things first, we're going to start working through the armor first. We're going to go through any enchant that can apply to all of your armor. If there's something specific that you're looking for, I'm going to have all of this bookmarked down in the description below, so it should have some bookmarks on this video where you can skip around and go to the specific item that you're looking for. There are a couple enchants that I'm going to omit and not mention because for all the mods 10, some of them don't matter as much because of how much gear is unbreakable. So I'm not going to be adding in here anything like life mending or unbreaking, because most of those don't matter and I feel like it's just going to waste time, and I want this to be as content rich as it possibly can be. So the first thing that we're going to be looking at is enchants for everything. And so we're going to start off with our iron helmet. We'll throw that in here. And what this does is it filters down all of the enchants you have in here to just the enchants that will apply to the item that you put up in the top right. So all of these will apply to our helmet. If they apply to all armor, they will also apply here. So the ones we're looking at for all armor are going to be your generic protection. The highest level you can get out of this is protection 8, and that's better because it just provides a generic protection for all of your armor to you. The second thing we're going to be looking at is that one we just had, which was blessing, and this has a chance to receive a beneficial effect when you're hit. What this means is that when a mob attacks you, you have a chance to get something like regen or some health buff, something like that after you've been hit, which can be very nice. The higher levels means a higher chance of each time you get hit that this will apply. Number 3 is sort of the counterpart to blessing, and that's this poisoning one, which just gives a poison effect to your enemies when they've been hurt. This can be very helpful. It means that you may only have to hit them once, especially if you have a very high tier of this, and this goes all the way up to level 7. The next one I'd recommend having on all of your armor is thorns. Thorns can be incredibly helpful because when enemies attack you, it actually ends up doing damage to them, which means you don't have to attack every single enemy around you. If you've ever been in the dungeon in the other, this can be incredibly beneficial to you because every time something does damage to you, it's doing damage back to them, which means you don't have to fight every single one of the insane number of mobs that are down there. You can sort of passively do damage to them. And then the last two I want to mention are both mana ones. We're looking at mana boost and mana regen. The max level for both of these is level 7. Mana boost increases the maximum level of mana, and mana regen just regens your mana faster. All of those enchants you can put on every single one of your armors, your helmet, your chestplate, your legging, your boots, and I highly recommend having all of those on there. If you aren't doing as much with ours, you can sort of omit the mana boost and mana regen ones, but if you're doing anything with them, they can be incredibly beneficial. All right, so let's move on to specifics. For the helmet, there are 2. Both of these are basic Minecraft enchants, but they have higher levels that I would recommend putting on your helmet. And those 2 are, first of all, respiration. Respiration can go up to level 7. All this does is allows you to breathe for longer underwater. And then second of all, aqua affinity. Aqua affinity is just a level 1 enchant. It can't go any higher than that, but it increases your mining speed while you're underwater. Both of those are beneficial. 90% of the time, you'll never notice that they're there, but once you need them, they're incredibly nice to have. Next up, let's take a look at chest plates. There are 3 that I want to point out for chest plate. The first one is this top one right here, Berserker's Fury. It goes up to level 3, and it allows you to become enraged when you've taken damage. What this means is you move faster, you do more damage, and I believe you actually take less damage while you're in this effect. Again, specifically, speaking from experience here, for the dungeon and the other, this enchant can be incredible because you can move away from enemies as you get closer to death. You also do a lot more damage while you're trying to fight them. The second one here I want to look at is rebounding, and this one I kind of go 50-50 on. Make sure you know what you're doing if you're going to add this to your armor. Basically what it does is it teleports your enemies after they hit you much further away, which can be a good thing, especially in, like we were talking about earlier, the dungeon and the other. However, if you're trying to farm something like the pig glitches at the pyramids in the other, it can be incredibly frustrating because every single time they hit you, or every other time that they hit you, they end up teleporting 200-300 blocks away. And it becomes very difficult to fight them because they have a lot of health and it's going to take you several times of hitting them in order to kill them. So make sure you know what you're doing with this one. I can see how it's beneficial in some cases, but I have found it to be more annoying than beneficial. Especially the later on in the game you get, your armor's more strong, you're not really worried about taking damage. This one can be really annoying. Third and final one, this is Curse of Bones. This is a chance to reflect damage when hit. All this does is when an enemy hits you, it has a chance to deflect that damage from you and send it right back to your enemy. Very similar to Thorns, this goes up to level 13, can be very beneficial. All right, so next up, we're gonna look at Leggings. There are 2 that we wanna look at for Leggings. One of them is the same as this chestplate. We wanna look at this rebounding one. Could be good, could be bad, but I just wanna make sure to point out that it also can be put on your leggings, which gives you a higher chance of each attack of teleporting somebody really far away. But in addition to that, leggings have this special one called Swift Sneak, which increases your movement speed while you're sneaking. Meaning while you're shift walking, it dramatically increases how fast you walk while being quiet. Which, for the deep dark specifically, this can be really beneficial. It allows you to just continue to do everything you need to do quickly without walking really slowly for an extended period of time. So those are the 2 that we wanted to talk about for leggings. The last one is your boots. Now, believe it or not, there are actually 5 that we want to look at for boots. The first one, which is one you always want to have on, but especially in all the mods 10 you want to have, is feather falling. All this does really is reduce your fall damage, and that's only important in all the mods 10 because the bunny hoppers that used to negate all of your fall damage now only negate some of your fall damage, which means that using a jetpack can sometimes be a little disastrous if you're not paying enough attention. This can go all the way up to level 11. Depth Strider is also important. It just increases your movement speed while you're underwater. This can go up to level 7. Next up, we have Stable Footing. All this does is it negates the mining speed penalty for while you're flying. In all the mods 10, where you're probably going to be flying from pretty early game, this can be quite beneficial because it means that you're allowed to mine things while you're flying instead of always having to land before you mine things. So definitely add this onto your boots. Next up, Spectral Bite. This has a chance to trigger an area attack when you get hit, meaning once again, this can be quite beneficial for while you're in the dungeon and the other, and you need to be doing a lot of damage to a lot of different mobs all at the same time. This can go up to level 13. Last but not least, another basic Minecraft enchant, but is important nonetheless, is soul speed. This increases your movement speed while you're on soul blocks. You don't really use this a lot. This is another one of those that sort of stays hidden until you actually need it. And then while you're running on those blocks in the nether, it can be helpful. But if you run out of XP, this is probably the first one I would drop off the boots. Wouldn't worry about putting it on there. All right, so that's all of your armor. Those are the enchants that I would use for that. Next, we want to cover two other things. I want to cover your sword and your pickaxe. There are a lot of other things like tridents and shields and hoes and things like that that you can enchant, even shears. But for the sake of this video, covering the most important information that you probably need to know, we're going to skip all of that. If you're really interested, there's a Reddit post I found from All the Mods 8 where somebody covers the best enchants that you can put on all of those random weird items, and I'll leave that post down in the description below. But more often than those, you're probably going to be using a sword and a pickaxe, so let's cover the enchants that I would put on those. The first one, your sword. We're going to start with the most important thing, which is sharpness. This can go up to sharpness level 9, which does a ridiculous amount of damage to any mobs. So sharpness level 9. Next up, you can have knockback all the way up to level 5. This will literally just send your enemies absolutely flying. Fire aspect also goes up to level 5, which allows you to do a lot more damage to a mob with a single hit. And looting goes all the way up to level 8, which means you can get a lot more drops from the mobs that you kill each time that you kill one. With how many mobs you're going to end up killing in all the mods 10, sweeping edge can be incredibly important. It goes all the way up to level 8 and just increases the damage of your sweeping attacks with your sword when you do those. Now for the more fun ones, capturing can be very beneficial, especially if you're looking to set up a mob farm, because it allows for every single mob you kill to have a chance of dropping that mob's spawn egg. Meaning you kill a zombie, you have a chance of getting a zombie spawn egg, which means that you can use that spawn egg on a spawner and then change what entity that spawner is going to spawn. I always put this on my sword, but now that you know what it does, you can make that decision for yourself. Scavenger goes all the way up to level 3, and all this does is it allows mobs to have a chance to re-roll or roll again the loot that they're dropping, meaning that you have a chance to double the amount of loot that you're getting from each mob. On the way up from tier 1 to tier 2 to tier 3, it just increases that chance of it happening. Magic Siphon can be kind of interesting. I find it to be less useful because there's less opportunities for it to actually take effect. All it does is it allows you to absorb beneficial effects from your targets. If your targets don't have beneficial effects on them, it doesn't really take effect that often, but this can go all the way up to level 13 and you may find it beneficial. There are two more that I want to bring up. Number one is Plaguebringer. This is kind of the opposite of that. It has a chance to apply bad effects to your enemies when you hit them. Again, goes all the way up to level 13. And then finally, Frostbite. This has a chance to freeze and damage your enemies whenever you hit them. The freeze and damage used to be split into two different enchants in like all the mods 8, but in all the mods 10, it's all the same thing. It's just called Frostbite. It can go up to level 13 and can be very beneficial because it slows everything down and does more damage to them at the same time. So those are all the enchants that I would recommend putting on a sword. It can be quite a lot. It can be very expensive. If you have a lot of XP though, I would recommend going with those. Finally, last but not least, let's look at the enchants I would put on a pickaxe. Now again, we're not going to talk about Unbreaking or anything like any of the normal basic Minecraft ones that you're not really going to use in all the mods 10. There are 4 that I want to talk about, and 3 of them I would actually put on my pickaxe. Number 1 is obviously efficiency. Efficiency goes all the way up to level 9 in all the mods 10, and this allows you to break blocks ridiculously quickly, way quicker than you actually need to. And if you couple this with the ulti-mine, it goes like crazy. The second one is fortune. Fortune goes all the way up to level 8, means you get a lot more items from everything that you mine. Again, just a basic Minecraft one. Number 3 is miner's fervor. You will mine very fast, but never instantly. It basically acts very similar to like a very high level of efficiency. You can add it in addition to efficiency, and it works really well. Max level on this one is 5. And then finally, last but not least, there is an enchant called Boon of the Earth. And this is another one that I go 50-50 on. Early on in the game, it can be very beneficial because you get more ores whenever you mine stone. Meaning stone can drop ores like gold or copper or anything else in the game, and that can be very helpful. However, it also can be incredibly annoying the further on you get, because at a point where you're ulti mining a lot, you're getting a ton of just random items that you don't actually need. And this can fill up your inventory or your backpack incredibly quickly, or it can be an incredible pain to try to filter those items out and actually get the ones that you're trying to look for. So this is one that I would recommend testing out, especially early game, because it can be beneficial. beneficial. However, I wouldn't necessarily put it on my main pickaxe because I personally found it to be quite annoying. Now, what I'm going to ask you to do, I want you guys to leave me a comment down below with what your opinions are on those two enchants that I go 50-50 on. I want to know what you think about rebounding and boon of the earth and whether or not you think they're beneficial, because I'm curious to see if maybe there's something I've missed there, or maybe I just don't understand what they're actually used for. Also, if there's any enchant that I just totally missed or misrepresented, please leave those down in the comment section below as well. A lot of people watch these videos to figure out what they're wanting to do in their worlds, and a lot of those comments I found have been very beneficial, not just for me playing the game, but also for a lot of other people. I'm so excited for 2025 and what it's going to bring for this YouTube channel. You guys are the best. Don't forget, you're special, and I'll see you guys in the next one.